All right, guys, welcome back. Today we're working on a Donald Takayama, and it is a Tuflite. Oh boy, we got our work cut out for us.
Please, no, 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 no!
So these boards are kind of notorious. A lot of shops actually turn customers away. They won't even fix them. The reason is these boards are finished in a layer of paint, and that's unusual. Most boards are finished in a layer of fiberglass or resin. And so when you're trying to fix your fiberglass patch and you're sanding into the surrounding area, you're actually sanding through that layer of paint on the exterior of the board, and it'll just make your repair area get bigger and bigger and can turn into a nightmare. So anyway, this is how I fix it. Hope you guys find this helpful. And had a couple people recently asking questions about what tools I use in the videos and what I recommend for tools and all that stuff. So I'm going to start putting a photo of each tool that I'm using as it appears in the video, just in the bottom right hand corner. So hopefully that'll be helpful. And also you can check the description for a link to a website where you can buy all the tools that I use. Of course, we got to give it up to our favorite comment from the last video, and that would go to Gregory Hoover. Greg, I think I had an existential crisis when I was reading your comment, but you're certainly right that surfboards don't matter when you look at it like that. All right, so we're just cutting away some of this fiberglass. I'm going to make sure all the fiberglass that's not being repaired is well adhered to the board, and so any stuff that's just loose or flapping around you can cut off. And we're mixing up our epoxy. This is 2-part epoxy, so it's a 2-to-1 mix. Say you use 10 ounces of A, you use 5 ounces of B. Give it a really good thorough mix, and I'm separating my mixed epoxy into 2 cups and then mixing different amounts of Q-Cell into each cup. The reason is I want a thick mixture and a more thin mixture. So here's the thin mixture, and what that's going to do is kind of seep into the cracks and crevices of our repair area. And then the thick stuff is going to be really for just kind of fleshing out the shape of the damage. So I use different sanding pads. I can list those too in the description, but there's medium, soft, and firm pads and different grits. I'm using 120 grit sandpaper there. Now this is a angle grinder, air die grinder with the 36 grit pad, and then finally my Makita finishing sander with 125 or 120 grit sandpaper, and I use that tool all the time for fine sanding and for feathering and for rails. It's really helpful for doing rail sanding. And of course, I always finish my rail sanding with hand sanding. It's really easy to just burn through your repairs using power tools on the rails of a surfboard. So just finish them. Do your fine sanding by hand on the rails of your boards. You're going to save yourself a headache. 4-ounce fiberglass, epoxy, same stuff I mixed up before, 2-part epoxy. We'll give it another layer of fiberglass for strength, since it is on the rail. It's nice to keep your rails nice and strong because they take a beating. You run into other surfers, run into rocks, drop your board. It's always the rails that get knocked on stuff. So here we go, just feathering the edge of this fiberglass. Meaning we're just sanding the edge of the fiberglass to match the surrounding surface area of the board. And you can see there, it's already, see how you sand through that paint so easily. And so what we're going to do ultimately is we're going to have our final coat on this board be paint as well. And so it's important to let your customers know that unless you have like auto body paint, it's not going to be as durable as the paint that comes on the board, but it'll definitely be watertight. And so it's just important to set realistic expectations with your customers. I never tell customers it's going to look perfect. I always tell them you're going to be able to tell that the repair was made, but it's going to look good. You're going to be happy with the way it comes out. So here we go. We're going to mix up our color now. This is acrylic water-based paint. I go down to the local guy who's got an art shop in my neighborhood. So this is a tip I use for color matching. You can just dab your paint on the board you're working on, and that is a really easy way to tell how close you're getting to matching that color. So masking is obviously the most overlooked part of any kind of painting. Takes the longest, and then the painting's just the fun part. Look at that, so satisfying. Again, all the paints I use are just water-based acrylic paints. And so they're definitely not as durable or as permanent as the paint that comes on a Tuflite surfboard, which is like really like automotive paint. But we're going to use a clear coat to finish it, and that's going to add some durability and help it be a little bit more permanent. So this is what we use, is a Rust-Oleum clear gloss finish. That's the video, guys. I hope that's helpful for you. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Shoots.